I don't know if anyone has convinced you to check out Dropout yet, Audra, but they have a game show on there called Actually, which is basically just Solosi, the game show. Hello, and welcome to episode 145 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG fan music podcast. I'm your host, Mike Salbato, and we are here again today with a Composer Spotlight episode. But before we get into that, I want to introduce my lovely panel today, starting with Hilary.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. Audra is with us as well.
Hiya.
And some guy named Pat.
Oh, let's do this thing.
The panel is also here.
Yes. Well, thank you, panel, for also being here. This is a fun one. I feel like this is one of those composer spotlight topics we've wanted to do for a while, but we're like, we kept doing other people first. So since this is our first episode for October and we're doing a Halloween episode later, I figured it'd be fun to kind of combine someone who's known for Gothic music, for Castlevania and stuff like that, with our Halloween episode. So it's not really a two-parter, but let's just say it's sort of a two-parter.
It's a spooky month.
I mean, given some of the songs we have today, yeah. So yes, as you can tell by the title, today we are spotlighting composer Michiru Yamane. Again, often known for Castlevania, but she's done a lot of other interesting things too, which we are going to be talking about today.
And also another one of those composers who started out early with Konami.
Yes.
So long list of credits. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We have some, on my part anyway, some maybe expected tracks for this episode, but then there's some deeper cuts from some stuff that she has composed, and also a couple that she specifically arranged, which are interesting. So I think we have a good range here of the different ways she's contributed to the RPG music landscape. So before we get to our tracks, I'm going to start with you, Hilary. What drew you to this episode?
I am always up for a composer spotlight, for sure. In this case, honestly, I think it was the fun of delving in a little bit and looking into work from a composer I actually know a bit less. I've played some Castlevania, but it's not top of the list of game music I listen to or games I play. So wanting to know more, I think, was a big draw for this. And there's a lot of cool stuff. I knew that she kind of had this reputation for a little bit of dark classical, but also combining some rock music. So that was interesting. But I also really enjoyed finding out that she was one of those video game composers who actually went to school for composition and kind of did the formal education background first and then had to adapt to composing for games.
Oh.
So that's kind of an interesting lens to talk about as well. So ready to go.
Awesome. How about you, Audra?
Well, actually, I was more familiar with her work in the Suikoden series than I was Castlevania, since I've only just started playing Castlevania, but I do like the music from both of those series, but I've heard of her other works, so I just wanted to be on this episode when the opportunity arose.
Yeah, and you brought two things that I'd never heard before, so I'm glad. I'm glad you came from that other perspective from what I'm used to.
Yeah, and it was good to have Suzuki in representation because I know you're a big fan.
Oh, yeah. No. How about you, Pat?
I mean, I have a million reasons to, celebrate Michiru Yamane.
Okay, pick your top 50.
Oh, geez. Well, 30 of those top 50 we'll talk about later, but basically, I adore her YouTube channel. I love that she's chosen to remain a public presence who's always just constantly presenting her work, reinventing her work, and celebrating her own repertoire. I think, people are free to do what they want, but I wish more composers would do what she's doing. I think it's so cool. She just has such a good sort of hey, let's make this thing happen personality. Yeah, that's a lot of it. She's just super cool.
Okay. Well, mine is some blend of all of yours. I mean, I fully admit I mostly know her from Castlevania, but and Bloodstained as an extension, but this was listening through this, and obviously we'll talk details as we go, but this was a learning experience for me, because I knew she did other stuff. I just didn't, like you said, Hilary, like I know of her and I definitely love her music, but didn't know a lot outside of what I already knew. I didn't know anything outside of what I knew. That's a great statement.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Very true. Couldn't be more true.
Yeah. Makes you really think, right?
It's one of those deeper statements.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we get into some of that music? As I've said the word Castlevania several times today, it was really hard not to have Castlevania featured on here a few times, but we at least spread it out a little bit. So you'll see Castlevania a bit, but there's some cool stuff in between as well. So I'm excited about this. Our first block today is a bit of a softer side. I think maybe the two of the more calming songs we have today. And that will be Audra and Pat. So Audra, what are we starting with?
We are starting with Searching for a Past Hero, the Flame Champion Waiting Ground BGM from Suikoden 3.
Awesome. And Pat, what is your first song?
I've picked the song Nocturne from what Japan would know as Castlevania Nocturne in the Moonlight, but which we know as Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
All right. I learned so much about that song this morning, which I know you will share with us, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go listen to Searching for a Past Hero and Nocturne.
I actually am thrilled that I was able to bring on Searching for a Past Hero. It's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, main installment Suikoden theme. And I mean, I kind of love the Flame Champion storyline and just how I feel like that background music really captures kind of the hopefulness and the mystery about him and the sadness that's lurking in the background of his story. And I just really was thrilled that I was able to bring it on. I love the instrumentation. I even liked the broken English vocal collection version of the song, which I did not bring here because I was like, I don't want to subject people to that if they don't want to hear it. But
you like it.
Yes, I do actually like it. I was singing it kind of when I was ever playing this song.
Oh, okay. I'm going to look that up later.
Yeah, and Nocturne, I kind of adore. It's a gorgeous melody and the vocals are stunning. And I was really impressed by it. I don't recall if I actually heard it when I played Symphony of the Night.
But, there's a reason for that.
You did not.
There's a reason for that.
Uh-huh.
But I'm glad I was able to hear it now, because that just kind of proves that Symphony of the Night has an amazing soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject a quick, for anyone who may not know, but we all probably do, a Nocturne, musically, specifically as a short composition of a dreamy nature, typically piano, but can be some other things, and it's suggestive of night.
Totally makes sense. I've actually never looked up the actual definition, so thank you.
That is why this particular song type shows up so much in games like Castlevania or like horror games.
Uh-huh.
It's intentional, and there's a long tradition of these kind of dreamy night positions.
Okay, yeah. I did definitely do some research on that one, but I frankly would rather Pat talk about it first. So if you want to take your turn, Pat, and then Hilary and I can go after you, because I'm sure you were going to say exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to mention Suikoden 3 first because, man, what a great track.
Yes.
Sometimes I forget how much Yamane worked on the series, and especially 3, I think, is where she has the most significant contribution. I could be wrong, but I
think
I saw
you're
3
right,
and 5.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really do I feel like, people who know Suikoden 3, they know it, and they tend to love it.
Yes.
A lot of people who aren't aware of, what goes on in that game, and I don't know, people just need to play that game. It's so good. I'm psyched for the 1 and 2 remaster, and I really hope they continue with 3. There are 5 games in the main series, but one could argue that 1 through 3 is sort of its own trilogy, because 4 and 5 are prequels, and didn't have the creator and director of the main trilogy involved with those later games. And I really think there's something special about Suikoden 3's music in the way it holds to the traditions of 1 and 2, but also evolves. And Searching for a Past Hero has some of the footprints of Miki Higashino, who did 1 and 2, but it's definitely a Yamane track. The instrumentation very much suggests it. It's a nice, slower, and as Mike noted, softer track. So really glad you brought that one, Audra. I had all but forgotten about it, and then I heard that, and when we were prepping for this episode, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is a good one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have you guys just before we switch over, have you guys kept up with that fan HD version of 3? Because I saw it when it was revealed, but I haven't watched to see if they've I assume they're still working on it. It was looking pretty good though. So whether or not it gets an official HD version, hopefully that one takes off. But yeah, I think it looks promising.
Yeah, I hope it does.
I'd play it.
Yeah,
that
I would
game
too.
is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's well, I have a lot to say about it. I'm going to save it for another day. Okay, so Castlevania Symphony of the Night, known in Japan as Nocturne in the Moonlight. What is this Nocturne all about, and how come none of us have heard it? When I got the game, or when I got the soundtrack in my youth, I got it around 99, 2000. I'm listening through the soundtrack, and I'm hearing these vocal tracks. I hear I Am the Wind at the end, and I go, yeah, that checks out. I beat the game, end credits roll, get this crazy, jazzy, soulful piece. There was this other vocal track that was just called Nocturne, and it was track 10, and man, it was so pretty, and we just listened to it, and it's like, well, where's that in the game? I'm looking all around trying to figure out where it plays. Turns out, when you summon that fairy, one of the familiars that you can summon, she says silly stuff in the English version, but the first time you summon her, there's this whole sequence where she sings a song in the Japanese version. And in fact, if you get the Sega Saturn version, it's a little different because she still doesn't play the song, but you can find a special item, which is the song lyrics card. And then you can get access to the song. But generally, hard to find, sort of dummied out piece of audio. And it's crazy because it's one of my favorite songs, like, ever. It's so beautiful. It's so simple. It is light. It's so airy. It kind of goes, it has a darker sound. It fits, what Hilary was talking about earlier with Nocturne by definition, because it is very dreamlike. Just the sort of ascending, arpeggiated, da-da-da, da-da-da. That whole thing is just like, and it's all major sevenths and major ninths. It's very good. And it's just like, it's just one of those things that it's like, who at Konami was like, oh, when we bring this to America, no one wants to hear it. The silly little Japanese fairy song. We can't have them hearing that. We're just going to cut it. It's like, man, what are you doing cutting like one of the best tracks on here? Like, yes, we all like Wood Covering Partita and we all like Lost Painting, but man, Nocturne's my jam. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite track.
Yeah. I think while I was kind of looking into it, what you have to do to have in the original to kind of have the fairy sing this song, and I love this just because it's getting like very pedantic about exactly what a nocturne is. You have to have Alucard in the chair, and it's like he's sleeping when she sings this song.
There's some places you can sit down and he will fall asleep, right? Which I don't even know if I knew that. In general.
I knew that. Yeah.
Okay, I gotta play again.
So very appropriate. 10 out of 10. Very beautiful song. And one thing that I think it has in common with Hero of Long Ago that I just want to bring up, this is like my main point for this block, because you all have summed up both songs beautifully. So I think the main thing I want to add is this idea. One thing that shows up a lot in Yamane's music is this idea of counterpoint. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I guess she did her dissertation on Bach, and that is a characteristic of his. So what it is you'll have a melody, and then you will either have it like repeated by other instruments in a different time, or for like, in a lot of cases, what the counterpoint is you'll have one instrument, one part doing a melody, and then you will have another part doing another melody that kind of goes with it, but is also distinct. So you'll have kind of two things going at the same time. And so that is definitely characteristic of a lot of her music. And if you listen to these two, there's a little bit of it like around the point in Nocturne where the vocalist is kind of answering the piano-y, Celestia sounding pretty instrument. They kind of like work together. One is like answering the other. And then more traditional counterpoint is, I noticed in Hero of Long Ago, which is like where you have the melody, but then you have a really strong second part that is almost equally loud to the melody, playing like directly with the melody. So just keep an ear out for that.
Yeah. I'll listen again now. I always love when you start off saying, it's like, well, you guys summed up pretty well. I'm just going to add a little thing. And then you like have something very, very notable and different that no one else thought to mention. So thank you.
Very insightful.
So in my like time playing cello, my teacher really thought I was good at Bach. So this is how I learned a lot of this stuff.
I'm sure you are. We gotta get you back on that cello. What are you sitting here doing podcasts for? Go play a cello. I'm just kidding. Don't go away. We still have the rest of the episode to do.
Oh, okay. I won't start learning how to play Nocturne on the cello then.
Oh, that would be fun.
Oh my gosh, do it.
That would be awesome.
It's kind of funny. Originally my notes, I was going to make a little joke that the YouTube video we listened to for the Suikoden song, that I made a mistake of looking at the comments, which on YouTube usually means a bunch of crap in the comments. But in this case, no, it was just that the first comment on there, or the most recent one, describes the song as hopeful and mysterious. And I'm like, well, shoot, like, I don't want to just echo this person, but that's exactly what I got. I'm like, that's a great way of summing it up. And then Audra used those exact 2 words. You wrote it too?
I also had mysterious.
There you go. Yeah, hopeful, mysterious. I didn't know there was like a touch of sadness to it, but like I could see how that would be the case.
So this song apparently does very, very well at evoking specific emotions.
Yeah. We all picked up on it individually. I might have if I hadn't accidentally read that comment first, but I mean, no, it's great at that. It really does convey all of those different things, and that kind of thing is always interesting to me. And the fact that we all got there in different ways and had similar words in our notes, like, says a lot, I think. So yeah, that was cool. It just that a song can like touch on those things and convey those, even for people like Hilary and I who don't have the in-game context, is really impressive.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think we should be looking as we go through these remaining tracks, where is Yamane using counterpoint and other sort of Baroque style techniques throughout, because I think we're going to run into it.
It's everywhere.
Well, I know the other track that I've chosen has it, so we're probably going to find it more than once. So very exciting.
That's true. My personal story with Nocturne is basically the same as yours, Pat, in that I've known about the song, but until very recently didn't actually stop and think like, oh wait, like I didn't actually encounter that in the game, and now I see why.
I didn't hear that.
No, I mean I did read, because I didn't play the PSP port, because frankly they retranslated and took out a bunch of lines that I like, so I can't do it. But I guess even in the English version of the PSP one, they did put this in. You can get the like alternate fairy familiar that will sing the song, and like she's apparently more likely to sing it if her level is higher, which is interesting.
That's wild that it's not even just this one familiar; it's an alternative version of this one familiar.
Yeah, like she's a slightly different color. Like the regular fairy is blue and the other one is green. But yeah, and then the PSP one also has an English version, which we don't have here today, but I'll have to check that out too. So it's weird that they put so much into that version. I had no idea.
I have a review of the Dracula X Chronicles soundtrack, even though most of that soundtrack is just a remake of Rondo of Blood, which doesn't fall under our realm of coverage. I remember debating Eric about this back in like 2007, and saying, I want to review this 2-disc soundtrack because there's 4 tracks on here that are for the Symphony of the Night port that don't exist elsewhere, and one of them is the English version of Nocturne. So we have a review on the site for this that includes the English version of this song. I prefer the Japanese version.
Yeah. See, you wouldn't have had to debate me about that, so I think I make it easier for you.
Thank you for being so kind.
Usually you're like, hey, can I review this? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
More music.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I have to add about the song itself beyond what you guys did. It's really beautiful, and to me, like, I don't want to make it too much about the story and the nature of the song versus the song, but I think that's really just interesting. That in every version, the Japanese PlayStation one, the Japanese Saturn one, the English PlayStation, the PSP, like it has a slightly different use in every single version of the game. And even, we didn't really talk about this, but even the Saturn one, like the fairy, there is a fairy that can do it, but you have to get a special item for her to do it. So it's not like why they went to such lengths to keep changing this one little mechanic.
And then even extended that and made it even harder.
Yeah, it's just really interesting. So yeah, no, I mean that was if only for the weird nature of it, beyond it being a beautiful song. I'm glad you brought it, because I've just learned a lot about it that I didn't know there was. I didn't know there was anything to learn about.
The links we'll go to for a good song.
Yeah. honestly, going into this episode, I kept having it in my head. I'm like, you know what? I know this isn't for some reason I thought it was used on like the game over screen or something, which I don't know why. And then I looked and I'm like, oh no, it's like this guy laughing at you. Like a budget Vincent Price laughing at me and mocking me for dying.
You know, that's fun, right?
Yeah. Anyway.
God bless budget Vincent Price.
I mean, no offense to the guy. I'm just like, he whoever it was, like it was intentionally hamming it up. So
yeah.
I think they know
wrong
that.
with that.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any other thoughts here, or should we move on to perplexing 3D attacks?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, we're starting with you, Hilary. Not only because you coined the name of this block, but because your song is first.
Okay. My track is a contender for our silly title episode. Unknowable Geometry, the Symphony mix. This was for Sword and Sworcery, originally composed by Jim Guthrie. Yamane arranged it, and this is from an album called Scythian Step, 7 Sworcery songs, localized for Japan.
You know all those S's were just to throw you off, right?
Yes.
Scythian Step, 7 Sworcery songs.
Sworcery songs.
Sworcery. I still think it's pronounced sorcery, but I don't know. Okay.
No, I'm just emphasizing that sword is
the
in there
Sworcery.
too.
Yeah, thank you. All right. And Audra, what's your second song?
My second song is Reincarnation of Light and Darkness, Shagaru Magara. The composer is Marika Suzuki from Monster Hunter 4, and the arrangement is from Yamane from the Monster Hunter 10th Anniversary Compilation album Tribute.
And also the tribute part is important because there's 2 albums with that title. Yeah, I forgot what the other one is. We'll talk about it later. Let's go listen to Unknowable Geometry and Reincarnation of Light and Darkness, Shagaru Magara.
Now I need to go find Sword and Sorcery and play it because it looks right up my alley. I love everything about it that I have seen, and delving into the music a little bit, I also really love that. Unknowable Geometry, the original, just for a little bit of context, it is an early battle with a Trigon, which is a specific type of enemy that is basically a triangle.
I mean, it is triangular. Sometimes they split off into multiple triangles.
They shoot lasers.
Throw triangles at you and shoot lasers and rainbows at you.
I'm just going to start calling them Evil Triforce or something. I don't know.
I mean, they are inverted Triforces.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. So you're fighting one of them, and the original track is just really atmospheric and moody and minimal. It's basically just kind of like a lot of long notes, like an interesting chord progression. It's really sinister. Is how I would describe it, or tense at least.
I like sinister, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really make it like you get the sense that this is a very serious battle from the original, because it's effective use of that. Just like, you don't need a lot to create an atmosphere, like less is more kind of thing, I would say. This remix, however, is very different. And so I wanted to add that information just kind of to build up the contrast, because Yamane came in, and the very, very first thing that she basically takes that minimalist chord progression and uses that as a very like foundation level, kind of the basis, and just adds this whole more Castlevania like Baroque kind of stuff on top of it, and it's really cool. And the first thing she comes in with are these really tense, like fast string notes, and then from there you're just kind of like off into this whole cool Baroque type melody, and there are instruments joining in. If you listen to Baroque music, you'll recognize kind of like the timing and the patterns of the different instruments joining in with the same melodies. And then sometimes counterpoint. There's a really cool B section in the song where the strings just are going forever. And it's just very interesting to contrast the two, because you get a little bit of that same atmosphere, but they were very, very different musical approach that just uses the most minimal foundation from the original song. So it's just really cool to listen to. And then, so moving on to Monster Hunter. That one is a little bit more like of a traditional, has a stronger melody in the original, and she built on that too, but it's not the same kind of thing. So it's interesting to see kind of a little bit more of like a conventional arrangement in Monster Hunter. I really like how her arrangement kind of highlights the bit in the Monster Hunter track that sounds like hunting horns. There's this sort of like
yeah.
It's like a sequence of maybe 3 of those that repeats throughout the piece, and it just really feels like you were off to find a dragon, and the song just builds into this like active encounter mode, like the monster is raging or something toward the end. So I like both a lot, and I think it's really neat to have these 2 different arrangement approaches, but with the same type of album, which is other artists paying tribute to a game's soundtrack. And actually, that reminds me of one other thing I wanted to mention about Unknowable Geometry and why I picked it, which is that the original composer's from Toronto. So, like, I love the idea. A lot of Japanese RPGs ended up influenced by, like, early kind of more standard, like, Eurocentric fantasy PC games. And there's been this sort of, like, cultural back and forth. And so the composer for Sword and Sworcery is from Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. So it's this cool kind of, like, East-West dynamic going. She's remixing his stuff.
Yeah, I forgot. I don't have it up in front of me right now. I forgot who else exactly was on that album doing arrangements.
But it was specifically Japan.
Yeah, it's like specifically Japanese composers and musicians. Yeah, it was a cool project.
Well, I don't have much exposure to the original songs for either of these pieces. I just really like the arrangements after hearing them. And I love the unknowable geometry. I kind of just love the build-up, and just the instrumentation in that one is amazing. And hearing more about it was just really great to get that context and everything. And Monster Hunter, I thought it was a really good action piece. I mean, and especially I like the idea of the horns playing an instrument part. And I love the way it builds up from like really slow to and almost soft to then like getting really intense. Like you can tell that's when the monster's really coming at you or the attack's going really hard. And even like the little vocals at the end, I thought was a really nice touch.
Yeah, I had a note about that, how it like starts with almost like creepy, kind of like horror movie strings a little bit at the beginning, and you get lots of different kind of instrumentation throughout. And the vocals at the end were a surprise, for sure. I had that written down. I was like, vocals? Question mark, question mark.
Question mark. Yes, exclamation mark, exclamation mark.
Those are vocals. Good job.
You did it. Well, speaking of solid identification work, I mean, Hilary, what you talked about with unknowable geometry is really important, because the original version by Jim Guthrie, like, yes, technically there's a melody there, but it's so minimalist that you could argue that what the track you're listening to is so ambient, you're really just getting harmony and rhythm, and you're like, well, where's the melody? And then here comes, the Scythian Steps Arrange album, which is one of the coolest. I mean, Mike, you were just talking about this whole album, and just the fact that it exists is so neat, that you had this indie game from North America, and then it's just like, well, when we bring it to Japan, let's do an arranged album of just, Japanese arrangers, doing some tracks from this. And I love this. It's like a digital EP that you can purchase. I love this album. And Yamane's choice to do unknowable geometry is so interesting, because it's like, well, what's she going to do with the melody when it's barely present? And she's basically like, well, we're gonna do melody and counterpoint. Let's go. Yep. It comes out so much stronger and feels like a more memorable track than the original. I do love this OST so much. Actually, it's one of 2 OSTs that I have on cassette tape that were officially sold as a cassette tape.
Oh, fun.
So I have the OST on cassette, and I don't have this car anymore, but for a long time, I had a car that it only had a cassette tape player, and so I had a bunch of mixtapes of VGM that I had, but then I also officially had this soundtrack, and I would listen to it. And it, the OST is like, if you really like that sort of chill ambient style that Jim Guthrie does, like, it's a great album to listen to. But Yamane really brings life to it, and if you listen to the whole EP, she does this in a way that the others don't, because the others are bringing a lot of sort of EDM style to it. Like Bayon is another person on there, and people might know him from the Pixel Junk Eden games, which is musically the best of the Pixel Junk games. Does anyone else know that music?
No, actually, I mean, I know of it, but no, I haven't really listened.
Yeah, that's kind of...
That music is so good, and he does such a good job doing what he does on his Jim Guthrie track, but Yamane sort of stands out for doing, like, it's called the Symphony mix. Like, she makes it sound like a good, like, classical orchestral piece, and it's just so... Yeah, I super dig it. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad she took on that track specifically.
Yeah, me too. And this is another good point for me to interject some more context, I guess, and maybe some more fun facts. When like reading up on kind of Yamane and her background, this arrangement really kind of feels like it was done by someone who is a composer, musician, went through that whole education, but is also a gamer, which is kind of exactly what her background is. She was studying music and was playing games and didn't really think to connect the two until she started at Konami.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Does it say what she was playing back then? Did you read? Do we know?
Ooh,
What were her early favorite games? I don't know. I like knowing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, if she wasn't playing Konami before she joined Konami, she certainly learned to enjoy those games afterwards, I would think.
You would, you know what? You never know.
That's a good
I'm never
point.
going to play a Konami game again.
She's like, I hate Castlevania.
No Belmonts.
Well, you're writing for the next 7 of them.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's one of those things, though, like, I see it more and more, or I hear about it from different people in creative positions who don't see it or don't look at their stuff after. This is a really weird tangent, but I recently learned that Katie Sackhoff from like Battlestar Galactica and a bunch of other things has like her own podcast now, and I like her. So like I started listening to it, and she was interviewing. I forgot who she was talking to in this one, but someone asked her, "I was like, when's the last time you watched Battlestar?" And she's like, "I've never watched it." And I'm like someone was asking her. Like someone wrote in and it was asking about like a scene, like how did you gear up for this one scene, like this one of their favorite like Starbucks scenes, and she's like, I don't remember that scene, which by the way is fair because it's been like 16 years. But she's also like, I'm not sure I've ever even seen the scene because I haven't actually sat down and watched the entire show myself, because you live in it all the time. So I'm like, I used to be surprised by that. I'm like, you know what? I get it. Like, if it's work, you're going to approach it differently. So
yeah.
I would hope she's played the Castlevania games, but you never know.
What's interesting is that, like, I think it's almost more interesting that, like Pat said at the beginning of the episode, she's very, very, like, active arranging her own compositions, at least, and, like, playing them for people and performing them.
Yeah, that's true.
So, that's almost more surprising to me now.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that.
So we actually had the original version of Unknowable Geometry on the show back in episode 30, which was a very long time ago. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive, I brought it on because when this game came out in 2011, I was really taken by it. It's probably the first mobile game that actually grabbed me. Not that it's a mobile game anymore. You can get it on Switch, Steam, whatever. Very cool. It's short. It's like 4 hours long, but it's just a really interesting, sometimes rhythmic experience, but just the atmosphere is so good. And then like everyone else has said now, like this album is just really fascinating because this and some other ones, it sort of sounds like the arrangers who came in were, I don't know if they were really just given free reign, like here, do whatever you want, but given how much he transformed this song from, like you said, Pat, like more of an ambient kind of experience to something else. Really cool. Like I almost don't know that I would have recognized it for the most part because who described the original? What was the word that I thought was so good?
Oh,
I don't know. I had unrelenting intensity, or even like sometimes it even feels like oppressive. Because like if you get the timing wrong in those battles, it's very difficult. But
yeah, that can go bad fast.
Yeah. But just that sense of like just oppressive soundscape or whatever, like isn't really there in this one. It's like it's a very different feeling. But she still retained that like a different kind of like intensity. Like it does like grow as the song goes on, and you hear like just it's a little bit. It's more subtle than in like playing the game itself, but you just do still get sometimes it's punctuated by like these like thunder, lightning strikes in the background, like that you'll see in the boss fights. But yeah. No, I was just gonna say like the orchestration and all the embellishments and everything she did with it, just it gives it a new feel where it's like it's still kind of intense, but less of the like oppressive feeling and more like impending triumph. Like it's kind of just changes how you, I don't know. That's what I got out of it.
I like that. Although I would not want to fight a Trigon with this music, this version going, because it would be such a harder fight with the timing.
Oh, that's true. That's true. No, you need the original in the game. Sometimes we talk about that. It's like, oh man, it'd be cool. Like this arrangement was in the game, but this one wouldn't work because of the rhythm you need to do those fights.
It would mess me up.
Yeah, it would be like playing Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memories, where the notes that you're trying to hit, one, it's just inaccurate enough that you miss them all the time.
I'm distracted by all these other notes.
And two, the notes are actually for like not the prominent, it's like more like the background sounds of the song instead of the main melody of the song, which is why that game is a problem. But anyway, we're not here to rail against that game today, a game that I wanted for years and could have been better, but they ruined it. Now, for Monster Hunter, deep, ponderous music is not what I think of when I think of Monster Hunter, which I know is not the whole song, but the first like 2 minutes of it are really that in this arrangement. It's this really surprising, like almost serene introduction that leads to this battle theme. And again, like I compared the original on both of these songs just to see. And the original is definitely not the same sound as Sword and Sworcery, but it is more what I expected for a Monster Hunter battle theme. And then I like, again, that this arrangement changes it. Again, I don't know if it's just me that I'm like, had my head stuck in like, triumphant, encouraging battle themes, but that's what I feel like she did with this arrangement as well.
Monster Hunter does that really well in general.
In general, yeah. Like I don't get that as much from the original here, but I get it more so in this arrangement. Just the different arrangement or the different instrumentation she used. I like that it alters the mood, so it's still intense, but in a different way. And I don't know, I get a different emotion out of it versus just the straight up original version of this. So, yeah, always fun. That's one of my favorite things about arrangements is seeing how they, like, I always won't give them credit on their own merit, but I love comparing and seeing like what they did in terms of like the mood or the instrumentation. So I like how they can be transformed like that. All right, are we ready for our unnamed block 3?
Oh man, can we make our block 3 House of Fortune?
I was thinking of how to mash up those two names.
That's cute.
Oh, yeah. That'd be good.
We could go House of Fortune. We could go Lament of the Night. I don't know yet. Ritual of Innocence?
Ritual of Innocence.
That sounds like a visual novel.
Ritual of Innocence.
It sounds like a visual novel, though.
Yeah, I feel like
it does, actually.
Okay. So...
Oh my gosh. Okay, we got to tell Audra about that actually question with the visual novel title screens.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
After, yeah.
Cool, we will do that.
Okay.
All right, so our third block today is all about me. Not really, but I ended up pairing my songs together because I think they went together better, and I don't know, everyone else is paired off nicely. So here we are. So I have a block of both of my picks today. So my songs are House of Sacred Remains from Castlevania Lament of Innocence, what I think is a horribly underrated soundtrack.
Yeah.
And Gears of Fortune from Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. So, well, let's go listen to that. Let's go listen to House of Sacred Remains and Gears of Fortune. Oh boy, do I love this song. I just like that it continually transforms itself and just continues to build in different ways. You know, it starts off really minimal, focused on the organs, and then those kind of ominous, almost distant vocals. You get a little bit more of the organ, and just when you think you know what you're getting into with the song, around like a minute 37, really we get this transition so powerful. I originally was going to say it's like a slap in the face, but it's more of a whip crack, I guess. Yes. The organ, of course, comes back as the song goes on, and like prominently the vocals like come back here and there. But I like how the song moves around between like these different moods and intensities. But there's enough like recurring elements like the organs and the vocals and stuff that it's all still cohesive. Like it moves around a lot and, like I said, changes, but none of it feels like out of place. It's just continually like just exciting in different ways, and I think it's a good example. I mean, there's a lot. I know, Hilary, you really like the Anti-Souls Mystery Lab, not just because that's an incredible,
it's a bop,
an incredible name for an area.
Well, yes. No, that song goes hard.
I mean, Lament of Innocence has such good music.
It does.
I don't think I ever finished it because, you know, I don't think it's the worst of the 3D Castlevanias, but they really did struggle bringing that gameplay to 3D.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I mean, I thought Leon was cool and the music is great, so I would like to give it another go, if only to like hear all this stuff in context. But yeah. As for Bloodstained, I did finish that one, and boy, did I have a lot of fun with it. I think generally people like it. I don't really know exactly what the reception is now, like 5 years later, but you know, I know there's always that thing. You know, we had things like Mighty Number 9 and some others where you get these big creators going off to like make their own game or like a spin on what they're known for. So it's one of those like it's Castlevania and all but name kind of thing. And you know, I think there's sometimes unfair expectations that go with that. Like, oh well, you know, this needs to like leave a mark on the genre, like as powerful as Symphony of the Night did when it came out, and like that's just it's not going to happen. Like you can't expect that again, is what I think. I'm not saying it's as good as Symphony of the Night, but I do think what they set out to do with it, I think they did well. I mean, when I got it on Switch, and it ran so poorly. I mean, the performance at launch on Switch was horrific.
I remember that.
Not Pokemon Scarlet and Violet bad, but it chugged a lot. But I didn't care. Like, I liked it so much, I went through and finished the game way before they ever patched it. So I as far as I know, it's better now. But I liked it enough and had so much fun with it. I'm like, I'm not going to wait for them to fix this because I still want to play it. But there's so much to love on the soundtrack. So I had a bit of a hard time choosing one, but I did go with this one because, you know, I think getting Yamane on board with this was perfect, given what they were going for with this game. Like, her sound is just exactly what this game needed musically. So as you might guess, again, a Castlevania not called Castlevania, there is indeed a cool clock tower, and that's where this one plays. And I think while some of the game's great like ambient sound adds to the mood, like if you're in here, you hear like these big like metal gears like churning and grinding against each other. So I think that there's those
metal gears solid, sir?
I think they're pretty solid. Yeah.
All right. Good.
Yeah. Ah, damn, I didn't even think of that reference. Good one. Okay.
I did. I was right there.
Yeah. So like, I think that adds to the mood, but that's okay. Like, you still get the sense of that even without the sound. Like, it still feels exciting and driving, and there's enough of a, I can't think of the word. I'm sure someone else can help me here, but heavy hitting something. There's something like solid enough about it. And it's, you know, I'm going to keep wanting to say solid because of you, Pat. But like, it just, you know, you're in this tower like full of like these giant stones and these huge metal gears. So like, you need a sound that like fits with with that. See, I can't say any of those words now. I can't say Metal Gears or Solid. You threw me off, but you know what I mean, right? Like
it's all my fault.
You need that kind of like heavier sound with that, and it has that, but it's still like exciting, and I don't know. It's a really fun one.
It's interesting that you mentioned the heaviness of it, because we mentioned like paying attention to Counterpoint and how it changes and like how she uses it throughout these things, and actually you're making you realize there are some choices here that maybe create that impression, or at least did for me. In this one, you get a little bit more unison. So I think there's like strings playing in unison at one part, and I think that definitely contributes to it feeling like solid. And then you also have like pretty solid level of like energy in the music throughout, even when the parts are changing, like between kind of the organ type stuff and the violins. I think it stays pretty consistent, which I think also maintains that impression of just kind of like, metal, heaviness, all that. I don't know. It's interesting to think about that, especially knowing it's a clock tower. And I think it leaves room, like that consistency also leaves room for some of the ambient noise, like you were talking about, the gear sounds.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I think that might be my favorite song of the episode. But I love the House of Sacred Remains too. I think they're both really phenomenal pieces of music.
I love how House of Sacred Remains kind of tells a story. And that's like most of what my notes are about, is you have the like kind of somber brass at the beginning that's sort of like, well, maybe kind of like a tribute or like a funeral or something. That's like the send-off. And then you get the eerie, like creepy choir and the low bass section that sounds like something in Quintet when they're trying to be creepy, kind of. So you have that like eerie section, and then it kicks into the main piece, I would say, at like around 137, where you get, I'm really glad you brought this on, because both of these pieces have that kind of like Baroque organ, like the standard kind of like creepy vampire song is Bach Toccata and Fugue, right? The do-do-do,
right.
And I think the organ in these two pieces like kind of evokes that a little bit.
Yeah, see, that's why I couldn't figure out what to pair these with besides each other, because I like that.
They fit well together.
Yeah, they're both great tracks. That it's a very peanut butter jelly moment that you've put together here, Mike. And I'm going to say that Gears of Fortune is a very crunchy peanut butter.
Yeah,
because it's a rock song with a strings violin melody on top of it, which, even though the genre, especially because of its chord progression, a lot of minor one with like 5/7 resolution, like definitely still maintains some of the Baroque vibe. Like you would say in terms of instrumentation, like this is like every Falcom song after the year 2004.
Yep. I have that in my notes too.
Actually, that was one of the reasons I think it's one of my favorite pieces of this episode.
And
the Falcomness.
And even House of Sacred Remains, when it like gets going into that main section, it has rock percussion straight up. Pretty much.
It does. Yes, it does. So yeah, though largely House of Sacred Remains is a softer song. It does have that. You're right. But I think I might. Well, okay, no. Nocturne's my favorite track on this episode because I adore it forever. But among the tracks that I did not know going in, or wasn't familiar with, I'm with Audra, that Gears of Fortune, top tier, chef's kiss. This is a good choice, Mike. Thank you for bringing it to the episode. Like, this is awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, and also, the Lament of Innocence soundtrack in general, like, I need to go back and listen to it again. I think I had forgotten about how good it was. So thank you, Mike.
Just remember, anyone who goes back and listens to the Lament of Innocence soundtrack, that you do get the whole intro voiceover somewhere on there. So just be prepared for that.
Be ready.
I would probably describe, I need to listen to it more. I've listened to Lament more, but you could probably even throw Curse of Darkness in there too, as like probably better than you remember. Soundtrack wise, anyway.
Yeah.
Am I the only one here that played Bloodstained then?
I watched
it's on my backlog.
I don't think that counts.
I haven't gotten far.
Oh, okay.
I haven't beaten it, but I have played it.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just wondering. I mean, you semi-recently got into Castlevania, Audra, right? So
Yeah.
which one, remind me or tell the listeners for the first time, like, which ones have you played now?
Symphony of Night, and I know it was one of the Switch ones from Game Boy Advance. I did it for a review. I'm just trying to think
the
of what
Advance
it was.
Collection.
Yeah,
Yeah, just say the Advance Collection. One of those.
the Advance Collection.
Okay. So you're. It sounds like you're mostly going like chronologically then.
Pretty
Like
much.
going from Symphony to that, and I really want to get the Dominus Collection.
Same.
Yep.
No,
That's
it's good.
my next big thing. Because
Hey.
I've played Dawn of Sorrow. I haven't really played the other two.
Yeah. I think I finished Dawn of Sorrow. I can't say for sure about Portrait of Ruin, and definitely not Order of Ecclesia.
And this is actually why this episode is timely as well.
This is timely.
Yes.
We got the Dominus collection, and so
Yeah.
people are like, hey, how about that great music? Well, guess who wrote a bunch of it? It's
Yeah.
our girl, Michiru Yamane.
Oh, I thought you were saying it's timely because we're about to introduce our last block.
Oh, well, that too. It's timely for that reason, too. Speaking of the Dominus collection,
Yes. Pat, what do you have that's not from that?
Oh, yeah. So for our final block, which I propose we call it Ecclesia the Elder,
Ooh,
I like that.
Okay.
we have, I picked the staff roll, the end credits music from Japanese-only PS1 RPG called Elder Gate, which was the primary composer for that one is Michiru Yamane. So excited to present that one to y'all.
Yeah, I'm relying on you to do a history lesson on that one because I'm not familiar.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, and Hilary.
All right, so speaking of the Dominus collection,
Yes.
we are ending our main blocks today with something from Order of Ecclesia, and that is the arranged version of Wandering the Crystal Blue from the end of the Order of Ecclesia soundtrack.
All right, let's go listen to Screen Credit Staff Roll and Wandering the Crystal Blue arranged.
All right, well, we just heard the staff roll from Eldergate and Wandering the Crystal Blue, which is the Somnus Reef BGM for Order of Ecclesia, though this is the arranged version. We know it's arranged because for these DS soundtracks, the OST version would be very compressed, synthesized. We're used to this with like games like Etrian Odyssey. And so you get like the upgraded version on disc 2 of the soundtrack. And, or actually for this one, there might have just been a few arranged tracks at the end.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So you're getting a beefier version of Wandering the Crystal Blue. And it sounds really good. Real quick, I want to talk about staff roll for Eldergate. Eldergate, if you go look up gameplay videos of this was an original traditional RPG that Konami decided to develop and release late in the PS1's life cycle. Visually, kind of looks like Legend of Dragoon, but not as good. It's just a fun fantasy RPG that involves runes and demons and some stuff. So very sort of gothic sound. What I like about the staff roll is, man, does it sound like the Final Fantasy Tactics staff roll at times.
Okay.
It's like Michiru Yamane was like, well, I think I want it to sound like something out of like the Ivalice games right now. In fact, I would say beat for beat, there is a lot of Eldergate that reminds me of Vagrant Story, which was also another fully 3D PS1 game, though that was an action RPG. This Eldergate's a party turn-based again, in many ways similar to Legend of Dragoon. But musically, there is a lot. I think the use of woodwinds, the use of flute specifically, is very much in, like, I don't know, this seems like an expansion just past and outside of the sort of neo-Baroque and classical styles all the way up to romantic, which is what I think of when I think of Hitoshi Sakimoto.
Yep.
And so this was, from my perspective, you could argue it was like outside of her like bread and butter wheelhouse, but also this is so early in her career. This was the year 2000.
Oh.
Like you could also argue this is her like stretching and exploring in her earlier years as a game music composer. And she certainly does have versatility and range. If you've never played the game Skullgirls, she did like the whole soundtrack for that. And that's this indie fighting game that has like so much range. So she's capable of doing so much. But yeah, I wanted to pull something from Eldergate because it's a lesser known title and I really enjoy all the music, but I think the staff roll especially just captured so much. Yeah. As for Wandering the Crystal Blue, real quick, just want to say, if you're looking at style and a century of music, like this is Renaissance. This is like pre-Baroque, right? This really has sort of an Italian Renaissance feel to it, to me. The light percussion, the instrumentation, the style, it's very fun and very fitting for, again, I said earlier, I haven't even played Order of Ecclesia, but just looking at screenshots and stuff, like, I feel like, I don't know if they show composers concept art or describe, you know, here's what we want this scene to look like, or here's an early demo with no music. Can you make, like, I know it's different for every person, like, when they go into a game project, how much access to the visual source material they have before they write the music. But this fits the Somnus Reef so well.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just so good. And with that, I guess I'm Hilary, are you going to talk about more about Ecclesia?
Yeah, so okay, the new collection is not the only reason I went with this song choice. I also went with this just because it's very, very beautiful. Like, absolutely got lost in it while I was listening to it, and decided that, like, yeah, I want the slightly beefier version in our track list today. But also, Order of Ecclesia, I wanted kind of a range of time, like composition she's done at different times, and Order of Ecclesia is a little bit later in the Castlevania timeline. So that was another reason.
Wait, you mean like the in-game timeline, or in far as like when the game released?
I mean, release timeline.
Oh, okay.
Later than some of the other stuff we've already had. That was Castlevania.
Okay. No, I was just curious. Like, I don't remember when that, because some of them like do take place in the future.
Right.
I just don't know where this one lands. But go on.
Yeah, I meant more like release and when she composed them.
Okay.
Yeah, so just kind of wanted to represent some different time periods. But also honestly, this song showcases her primary instrument, which is piano. So I wanted something that really put a spotlight on the piano. That was the other reason why I picked it. And also, I like water levels, and I like music that's meant to evoke like underwater areas. So there you go. In a nutshell, is why I picked this particular song. And as for the Elder Gate track, I'm really happy you said what you did, Pat, because most of my notes here are like, oh, this bit at the beginning sounds like some of the like arpeggiation you get on FF7 tracks like Anxious Heart. And then, wow, this song went full Vagrant Story later on. And so I think that song does a really good job of like showcasing some of her musical influences, because when she's asked about composers that have influenced her or that she is inspired by or pays attention to, more than a few of them are RPG composers, and 2 of them are Uematsu and Sakamoto.
Okay, yeah.
So there you go. I think it's a good time to mention that. And also, I think Order of Ecclesia is one of her favorite soundtracks that she's done.
Oh, great.
When she's asked. So good stuff to know.
I'm sorry. I'm looking over your shoulder at your notes. Because, No. Because I wanted to see if you really wrote down, wow, she went full Vagrant Story. And you didn't. But I still appreciate the sentiment.
That's what was in my head.
Okay.
Did I actually write Vagrant Story? I meant to.
No, I mean, I don't care. I'm just saying.
Okay, I just wrote Sakamoto, but that is what was in my head.
Yeah. No, that's good insight. Unfortunately, I knew you were going to say that, so I didn't cover any of that myself. But yeah, Elder Gate was definitely not on my radar at all. Like, it's one of those Japanese-only games that, a lot of times I've at least heard of these things, but that one I don't think I'd even heard of, let alone to know who did the music. But it's another one of several songs today that I think has a beautiful and minimal like introduction. And for me, it played with my expectations a bit, because it shifted from like lighthearted fairy playtime, but then it's like a little more foreboding. But it kind of dances between those things, which I assume is because it's an ending theme, and it's probably like a medley of different songs from the rest of the game. Is that accurate at all?
I believe it. I believe it is a medley of some key themes.
I like the little jig. Like, I think that's the what happy fairy time part. Like,
yes. Jig is probably a better description, but I like fairy playtime.
Jig, but yes, that part was adorable.
Yeah, it was.
I kind of love how it just runs the gamut of everything.
Yeah.
It's just really a neat song.
Yeah, and then of course, like I said earlier, Order of Ecclesia is the one, unfortunately, of all 6 of those handheld games that I have the least experience with.
I want to play it badly.
I know, me too.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, this song is just so beautiful. I mean, we had the original on, I think it was episode 95. I looked it up earlier. So it's cool that we have that one, and now we can listen to this arranged one as well. Because I didn't realize there was like this little selection of arranged ones at the end of the soundtrack, which is great. But it does so well, like you said, Hilary, like accentuating the piano. It really seems to fit that area that it's in so well, which is great. I love when that happens, and the visuals and the music come together in such a good way. But I'm glad we have this with like all the other songs we have today, because it really illustrates like how she can take her quote unquote signature sound. Like, she's really good at like this gothic thing that we're used to. But like that she can do that and adapt, and it fits in like a soundtrack like this, because Order of Ecclesia is not just in a castle. And even the Castlevanias that are quote unquote just in a castle, they still have like the different like biomes and themes and stuff like that. But I like that this one, like, there's so much range there, and that she can adapt to something like this that's like different from what you might expect in the game. This is kind of getting rambling, so I'm going to end it there. But yeah, good choice.
Thank you. Now I'm just flashing back through all the different like biomes in Lament of Innocence. I'm like, she really did kind of like a Frankenstein, like slightly more modern thing with that one, because that castle has a theater and a lab.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, what kind of lab?
An Anti-Souls Mysteries lab.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
I like Michiru Yamane.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was only
That'd
hearing...
be a good one.
Thank you. I was like, I guess it's just the crickets today. Well, thanks everyone. That was as always, a great selection of songs today. I enjoyed listening to them. Personally, I can't speak for everyone listening or all of you, but I definitely enjoyed learning what I learned today about some of these other albums, about Suikoden, about Eldergate. So educational and entertaining as always.
Nocturnes and Counterpoint. That's all you need to know about Castlevania music. No.
Ooh, is that our episode title? Nocturnes and Counterpoint.
I like that.
That could be a good one.
I actually sort of do.
I endorse it.
I'm gonna write it down. Sorry if anyone here is typing. So there we go. That was fun. I'm not gonna pretend we don't have a bonus track later, but before we get to that, let me do my wrap up stuff here today. On this episode, we had 3 games making their Rhythm Encounter debut. Surprisingly, one of them was Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. Unsurprisingly, was Eldergate and Monster Hunter 4. So none of those had been on the show before. So thank you for our new songs, everyone. We talked about this at the top of the episode, but coming up next on Rhythm Encounter in a couple weeks is our Halloween episode. That's our first Halloween episode in 4 years, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we used enough Castlevania here that there's probably not Castlevania there, but I can't promise anything. So look forward to Halloween in a couple weeks. And after that, we're doing a long-awaited, at least for Hilary and I, because I know we've been wanting to do this one, an instrument spotlight, which we have not done in a while. And we're doing one on woodwinds. So anything woodwind, flute, will be on there. So that is going to be a good time. If you have thoughts on this episode, on topics, any feedback you want to give us, you can reach the show and me at music@rpgfan.com. What is the best way for people to reach you, Pat?
PGAN, PGANN at rpgfan.com. I check my email regularly if you want to get in touch with me. I am also on the thing known previously and still to me currently as Twitter. That's at Gameadactyl. That's the word game, the letter O, and dactyl. Good luck with that.
Thank you. And how about you, Audra?
Audra B at rpgfan.com. I check my email pretty regularly too. So,
all right. And Hilary?
I'm going to say email too. I'm Hilary A at rpgfan.com.
And you also check that regularly?
Yes.
Okay, the listeners can't see those shifty eyes.
No shifty eyes. I do check it regularly, although don't get emails that aren't strange random advertisements.
That's
for
true.
Games we don't cover.
Yes, send us real emails and we'll check your email with them. All right. If you enjoyed this show, we are not the only show on the RPG Fan Podcast Network. We also have Random Encounter and Retro Encounter. Random Encounter posts every other Monday, opposite Rhythm Encounter. This last week, fittingly enough, they did an episode on compilations and collections. So Jono and Zach talked about the Castlevania Dominus collection and then the Ace Attorney Investigations collection. Is that the name of the new one?
That sounds correct.
So many of those collections. Yes. Okay. So check that out. I don't know what's happening next week, but check that out too. Meanwhile, Retro Encounter posts every Thursday. Our podcast of many topics, which sometimes is game journals and sometimes is something else. Last week on Retro Encounter was a rare Retro Encounter that I was on, and you, Audra.
Yeah.
And you were there. Myself, Audra, and Zach talked about Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. And coming up later this week, Wes is hosting Vanillaware Encounter. Looking forward to that. I don't think it'll all be about Unicorn Overlord, but Unicorn Overlord has definitely been a major topic of discussion amongst the staff this year.
There'll be some 13 Sentinels and maybe a throwback to Odin Spear.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's all on there.
Odin Sphere, baby.
Yeah. And then the long-awaited game journal for October is Kingdom Hearts 2. because
Oh,
that
boy.
won a poll, and poor Solosi finally has to play Kingdom Hearts 2. And I'm not even making fun of him. Honestly, more than anything, I hope he actually enjoys it. So I have not heard yet, but hopefully he did. So check out Retro Encounter as well every Thursday. You can find RPG Fan on most social media as RPG Fan.com, which is true of all of these but one. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and Twitch, and YouTube, actually, as RPG Fan.com. We are also on Blue Sky, which we haven't officially announced, but it's there. We actually managed to get RPG Fan on there and didn't need the com. So all these links to social media are in our show notes, so check those out. You'll also find a link to our Discord. Our website is rpgfan.com. Check out our shop on RPG Fan at rpgfan.com/shop, where you can find RPG Fan merch and our review card collections book. I think I've talked about that book too much. Whatever. It's a cool book. Go check it out at rpgfan.com/shop. I'm not saying it'll make a good gift for people, depending on what holiday you may or may not celebrate this year or an upcoming birthday, but I'm very proud of our book, so check it out.
It's worth checking out.
It would make a good gift. It's beautiful. It's a great coffee table book.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, if you enjoy the show, we would love it if you could subscribe or review on Apple Podcasts. Can you even review on Spotify? This is how out of touch I am at Spotify. Whatever. Listen to us wherever you can. We would appreciate it. And that is all from me. Ending our show today, Pat, you have a bonus track today, and it's a really cool one that has been foreshadowed, 2 or 3 times this episode. So what are we closing out with?
Yeah, we're pulling audio from a YouTube video. This is off of Michiru Yamane's YouTube page. This is her doing a piano solo arrangement of the name entry music from Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. So, this is my plug and a reminder to everyone. Go to her YouTube channel, subscribe to it. She does amazing work. And we hope you enjoy this piano arrangement that she's doing as a live performance, a one take, so to speak, of name entry.
Awesome. I'll mention too, just to wrap up, this is like a 15-minute video. So we're going to include, probably 5 or 6 minutes. We're going to include a clip of it in the episode here. But if you go to our show notes in the track list, I have a link to the full video. I recommend checking out the full video. But yeah, so we're going to listen to part of it here. Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. I had a great time, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with our Halloween episode. Until then, we're going to leave you with the name entry from Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. And that's it. Enjoy, and we'll see you later.
Happy spooky season!
love Lady Tiara Rose, though.
She sounds fancy.
Yeah.
I want to be her aqua steed.
Thank you for coming back with that.